Well, it is officially the start of a brand new year. It's 2026 now, and it is now time to talk about my top 10 favorite movies of 2025. A couple of things before we get started. First off, thank you for being patient with me and for sticking with my channel. The holiday season this year was kind of a mess for me. Not in a bad way, it was just juggling a lot of stuff. And then the start of last month, December, I ended up going on a trip with my girlfriend and her family, and then I came back a week before Christmas and I ended up getting really sick, and then my girlfriend ended up getting sick after Christmas, so it was just a lot to juggle at once. There were some videos that I had planned that I wanted to do by the end of the year, but you know, life happens. I don't mind having to put them off a little bit, and I will get them done. I still have plans to do them. However, a video that I wanted to make sure I got done, at the very least, the first week of January at the start of the year, is my top 10 favorite movies of the year list. I do this every year. I've been doing these lists since I started with YouTube, so even though sometimes I fall behind on YouTube videos, I always make sure to get this video out here because I like making these videos. I like making lists, and I like expressing my favorite movies from the past year, or just favorite movies in general, so I wanted to make sure I got this list done. Secondly, I feel like I've said this the last couple of years, but I mean, it's true. It's true especially for this year. I definitely slacked on some movies, so there might be some movies that people really loved or think it's the greatest movie of the year, and I just haven't seen it yet. That is probably a possibility. For instance, I haven't seen the new Avatar movie. There's that movie Marty Supreme that I haven't watched yet. And you know, it happens every year. There's movies that I'm sure are big Oscar contenders that I haven't seen yet, or movies that I'm sure that I would love that I didn't get a chance to see yet. I think Predator Badlands, that's another one. So it's not that I thought those movies were bad, it's just most likely I haven't seen them yet. But out of the movies that I have seen, I managed to make a top 10 list with some honorable mentions. So let's get started with the honorable mentions first. The first honorable mention is Thunderbolts. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed this movie. My girlfriend took me to see it for my birthday. It's definitely one of the better Marvel movies that I think they have attempted recently. Had some issues here and there, but I enjoyed it overall for the most part. Novocaine I thought was a big, fun, adrenaline rush of a movie that I just really loved watching, and Jack Quaid giving probably his best performance ever, so far at least. Ballerina wasn't as good as the previous John Wick movies, but I still really liked the movie. I think Ana de Armas gave a really great performance. I loved seeing Keanu Reeves in the movie, and it is a really good spin-off entry into the John Wick universe. Like I said, though, it just isn't quite as good as the previous John Wick movies. Mickey 17 was a weird concept, but nevertheless, I respect the hell out of it for its weird concept. Its direction is great. Robert Pattinson is great in the movie, and I was so interested in what this movie was doing and what direction it was going to do. So for that alone, it deserves at the very least an honorable mention, but this was on my list at one point. Nobody 2 was about the same as Ballerina for me. I didn't think it was quite as good as the first one, but still a fun, over-the-top action movie. I love Bob Odenkirk in these movies, and you know, this movie was, I think, a little too cartoony than the first one, but nevertheless, still a really fun movie. And Fantastic Four: First Steps, I think, is the best Marvel movie that's come out this year, and I still stand by my very first reaction when I first saw this movie, and that was finally an actual good Fantastic Four movie, because everything else has been shit up until this movie. So those are my honorable mentions. Good movies, they just didn't quite make the list. Now let's start with number 10. And we're starting off with Paddington in Peru. I love the previous Paddington movies, and I was really excited when they announced they were making a third one. A little disappointed that Paul King didn't direct this one, and you can definitely tell while watching the movie. But even though this is probably the weaker one of the Paddington movies, it's still such a good movie, so much fun, so wholesome. These Paddington movies, even this new one, the third one, they're just great children's movies that don't talk down the children, that isn't stupid humor just to get an easy laugh out of children. I really think that these movies are doing something really great and special for kids, and I really, really hope that they make another one. And I know technically it came out in 2024, but for here in the US, it came out in early 2025, so it counts as a 2025 movie, just like the next entry on my list. And that movie is Better Man, one of the best musical biopics that I have ever seen. Musical biopics have kind of fallen into a generic category, very formulaic category since they've gotten much bigger. My light went out. I think my ring light just completely died on me. I had to plug in my one of my old lights that I used to use. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh, that's right, musical biopics. Musical biopics, in my opinion, have gotten very generic the bigger they've gotten over the last handful of years. But Better Man tends to go away from all that. It takes a very different and unique approach on telling the story of musician Robbie Williams' story, and I'm so disappointed that this movie didn't do that well financially. No one saw this movie in the US. In fact, I don't even think a lot of people saw it overseas when it came out, and that sucks. Because we finally have a musical biopic movie that's doing something different and unique and fresh, and it was really good and really well written, and nobody saw the movie. That's disappointing, but I'm glad I saw it because it's now one of my favorite musical biopics, and I think it outdoes a lot of the musical biopics that we've gotten over the last handful of years or so. Next on my list is a movie that I just watched recently for the first time, but I'm glad I saw it before I made this list, and that is One Battle After Another. I didn't know anything about this movie before I saw it. I remember seeing parts of one of the trailers, but I didn't really pay attention to it. And I'm really glad I knew nothing about this movie going into it because I was enthralled with this movie from beginning to end. Leonardo DiCaprio, I think this is his best performance he's ever given. I really hope he gets an Oscar nomination for this movie because he really deserves it. The movie's funny, the movie's got action, really good action, really interesting characters. It's definitely one of the best movies of the year, and if you haven't seen it already, do yourself a favor and check it out. Next up is easily the funniest movie of the year, and that is The Naked Gun. Now, I was worried about this movie when it was first announced, and I heard that Seth MacFarlane from Family Guy was going to be a part of it. Seth MacFarlane does not have the best track record when it comes to movies. After the first Ted movie, all of his theatrical movies, in my opinion, have been absolutely awful. We all know Family Guy has taken a huge nosedive the last, decade and a half or so. Same with his other shows. They're very hit and miss, so I was kind of worried about him being involved with this movie. I know he didn't direct it, but he was executive producer. But man, was I proven wrong. This movie is hilarious. They do not make comedies like this anymore. Deadpan comedies with stupid pun humor, we don't really get those anymore. A lot of the comedies we get nowadays are feeling very samey. They all tell the same type of jokes and structure. This movie goes backwards with how comedy used to be. And because of that, it felt fresh and new again. I really hope we get more comedies like this in the future. I'm glad this movie got a lot of good word of mouth from people. And yeah, this movie just did everything for me. The next movie on my list I actually just watched last night, and the fact that it made it this high on my list after watching it should speak with how good it is, and that's F1 the movie. I stand by that Ford versus Ferrari is probably the best racing movie we've ever gotten, and while it still is after seeing this movie, F1 really blew me away. I just loved this movie. I loved everything that this movie did. The director for Top Gun Maverick, he's doing something special now. Top Gun Maverick really elevated his career, and while there's some similar elements in this movie that were in Top Gun Maverick, they work incredibly well. There's a couple of corny moments. There's that line in the movie where they're in the middle of a race, or they're about to do a race or something like that, and one of the characters is like, "We don't have a fast enough car," and then it zooms in on Javier Bardem's face and he goes, "But we have the driver." There's some moments like that in the movie, but I think it adds to the charm. Whatever this director does next, I am all for. The next movie on my list, I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to see it. I had a feeling I probably would watch it, but I didn't think I was going to watch it before the end of the year. And I'm glad my girlfriend talked me into watching it, because the new Frankenstein movie I thought was really unique, really special, visually striking. And it just... another movie where they just don't make movies like this anymore. I'm so disappointed that this movie was just a straight-to-streaming Netflix movie, because this movie, I mean, it had a limited release in theaters, but I think a movie like this deserves to be more widely available in theaters instead of just a limited release. But nevertheless, the movie was still really great, and I guess I should be happy that this year we're getting a 4K Blu-ray from the Criterion collection for this movie. So, I mean, it got a limited theatrical release, and it's getting probably a really great physical media release. So, yeah, definitely check out Frankenstein. I know it's not Halloween season anymore, but I don't think it needs to be Halloween season to watch this movie. That's another great thing about it. Alright, my number 4 pick. I know a lot of people didn't really care for this one. I've seen a lot of negative comments about this movie, but I've watched it a couple times since it's been out in theaters, and yeah, I loved Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, and I'm not just being a biased fan about it. I really loved this movie. I loved what it did. I loved how big and epic it is. It actually felt stakesy. You know, when big epic action movies like this try to do the end of the world thing, you never really, you're like, okay, yeah, it's the end of the world. But with Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, it really feels like the end of the world is coming. Like, I was that much on the edge of my seat, and so was my girlfriend, and so were my parents when we watched this movie. Yeah, the movie does start off a little slow, and I understand some of the negative comments people have been saying about it, but I just don't view that when I watch the movie. I'm so enthralled with the action. I'm so interested in the characters, the stunt work, the cinematography, all of it. It's just breathtaking. And I think that alone, for me, deserves a spot this high on my list. I don't agree with the negative comments. I just don't. And it's my opinion, it's my list. Who cares? So now we're at the top 3, and starting off in 3rd place for this year for me is Superman. I was not on the hate train for this movie. Sure, it's disappointing what happened with Henry Cavill, but I knew James Gunn was gonna treat these characters with respect and treat Superman with respect. And sure enough, he did that. I said this when I first saw the movie, and I still stand by it now. I think James Gunn's Superman is the best Superman movie we've gotten since the original Christopher Reeve Superman. I know a lot of people like Superman 2. I'm not that big of a fan of Superman 2. I prefer the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2. But Superman 3, terrible. 4, even worse. Returns has its moments, but it's an overall okay movie at best. And Man of Steel, I know Man of Steel has its defenders, but I've always thought the movie was just fine. It was just okay. It had its moments. Superman, however, James Gunn's Superman, is great. I did a review for it. If you want to check it out, I'll put a annotation somewhere around here. If you want to hear more of my thoughts on the movie, go ahead and check that out. But I really do think that this movie did not deserve the negative feedback that it got from the Snyder fans of Superman. Look, that movie still exists, and while it's disappointing that we're not going to see more from that universe, James Gunn is doing something cool and doing something special with Superman. And it feels like it's separating itself from Marvel. I mean, yeah, you can argue there's Marvel elements in this movie, but it doesn't feel like it's copying Marvel. It does feel like it's doing its own thing with some familiar elements. And the movie was just overall well written with great effects. David Corenswet, I thought, was perfectly cast as Superman. In fact, I thought everyone was perfectly cast in this movie. And I can't wait to see more of it. We're getting Supergirl next year, and then we're getting a Man of Tomorrow movie, which I don't think is a Superman sequel, but Superman's going to be in it. It's a little confusing. But nevertheless, I am hooked. I am on board with this new DC universe. I'm ready for more. All right, my runner-up this year is probably going to be a lot of people's number 1 spot, but runner-up is still pretty good for me, and that is Sinners. I was not expecting this movie to be as good as it was. I saw it late in the year. Well, not late in the year, but I didn't see it when it came out in theaters. I waited till the Blu-ray came out. Then a little bit after the Blu-ray came out, I then watched it with my girlfriend. And so yeah, I heard a lot of talk about this movie. And when I finally watched it, I just agreed with it. I agreed with everything that so many people were saying about this movie. This movie is so unique. It's so different. And I loved the fact that it did that. The characters were great. The cinematography is great. The 4K even has the IMAX aspect ratio. I really wish I would have seen it in IMAX when it was in theaters, but I didn't get a chance to, so I missed it. We still get that experience on Blu-ray, thankfully. And yeah, this movie it's good to see a movie that is not an IP. It's not a familiar franchise or sequel or reboot or anything that everyone unanimously loves. It's nice to see that because it does show that people want to see original movies that aren't, again, sequels, reboots, franchise movies, whatever. People do want to see that. And hopefully people pay attention more because movies like Sinners are out there, probably not to the level or scope of Sinners, but they're out there. We need to support it. We need to view them. And hopefully Sinners kind of wakes people up a little bit because I do agree. This movie was fantastic. It was phenomenal. I loved every minute of it. There's original movies like that out there. We need to support it. And it was nice to see so many people just come together with this movie and just give it all the love it deserves. And now my number one favorite movie of this year. I actually had to think about it when I was making the list. What was my favorite movie of the year? And yeah, I really thought about it. And when I remembered that movie, I was like, yeah, that's probably my favorite movie of the year. And that is Wake Up Dead Man, the third Knives Out movie. And the third one to just make me go, yes, thank you, Rian Johnson. I am a big fan of Rian Johnson. I have liked or loved every single movie he's done that I've seen. And I've seen all of his movies now. And I love what he's doing with these movies. Very similar to Frankenstein. I'm disappointed that these are Netflix movies. Yeah, they're getting a limited theatrical release when they come out. At least the last two movies did. But I really think that these movies deserve a longer theatrical window than just a week in theaters. And these movies definitely deserve to be out on Blu-ray. I was hoping by now we'd have Glass Onion on Blu-ray, but we don't. And it's probably going to be the same thing for this movie, which is disappointing. I don't know what happened with Lionsgate's deal with these movies. I don't know if it was just a one-picture deal or whatever, or Netflix just made Rian Johnson a better offer to make more sequels, but I really think Lionsgate should have really tried to make a deal to make these sequels because they'd be having a really great franchise right now, especially the fact that Rian Johnson is now working on more of these. But very similar to the previous movies, this movie has great characters, a great mystery. It tones back the comedy a little bit more than Glass Onion did, but that's not a negative to this movie. This movie does feel a little more darker, a little more depressing than the previous films, but it's all in this movie's favor because it's a faith-based movie. And with faith, you have your dark moments, you have your moments of doubt. And this movie plays along with that. It really does explore faith in an interesting light. And while you're watching this movie, in fact, while you're watching all the Knives Out movies, you could just feel what's going on in Rian Johnson's head as the movie is going along. And that's something that I think is very unique when it comes to writer-directors. And he's one of the best working today. I don't care. I love the guy. I love Rian Johnson. I love the movies he makes. I am ready for more Knives Out movies. Just Netflix, please put these movies out on Blu-ray. They deserve it. I don't want to have to buy a bootleg just because I want a physical copy of it. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Well, guys, that's my list. That is my top 10 favorite movies of 2025. I'm glad I was able to make some sort of list. Like I said, I slacked on movies last year, but I'm glad I was able to make a list that I was pretty happy with. This year in 2026, I'm planning on seeing more movies, making sure I keep up with some movies. Hopefully I stick with that this year. But yeah, let me know in the comment section what you guys thought of this past year of movies. What's your top 10 favorite movies? Or if you don't have a top 10, what's your top 5 or top 3, or if you have more, what's your top 15, 20, whatever it is. Whatever your guys' thoughts on everything is, let me know in the comment section. And just like always, guys, thank you again for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, then don't forget to like and share it. Subscribe right here if you haven't already. And until next time, guys, take care.